Welcome to Women Making a Difference, PJSAO women who inspire and motivate.
Niki Holmes, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Niki, you do fantastic work for this office. So for that, I want to say thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely. But I know you, and I know how great you are. But oftentimes the public, they only know me as the elected state's attorney. But you're working hard every single day for our residents. So why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and the work that you do in the office?
Sure. So my name's Niki Holmes. I am a prosecutor. I'm currently in the Special Victim Family Violence Unit. And in that unit, if you aren't aware, we handle sort of an assortment of cases in the circuit court side, which is where I'm assigned. We handle a range of felony domestic assaults from first-degree assaults all the way up till first-degree murders. And then we also handle sexual assaults, child sexual abuse cases, as well as rapes. And then aside from that, my sort of specialty and the area that I love working in the most is handling the human trafficking cases. And so that's a large part of the work that I do for the office.
So how did you get interested in human trafficking? What about that specific area drew you to it?
I was in the office for a little while, and we had a position come up that was handling the human trafficking cases. And what I particularly love about them is they're a little bit more long-term investigations, and they're cases that we sort of get to work from the beginning. A lot of times, especially in the domestic violence, sexual assault cases, we come in once the defendant has already been charged. And in the human trafficking cases, what's nice for me is that I get to work really closely with the police officers from the beginning. So as soon as they receive a tip or a complaint, they'll contact me. And that way I can help work with them throughout the investigation. And I think it helps us produce sort of the best end results.
And why don't you just tell everyone what human trafficking is? I think people hear the term, they think they know, but why don't you kind of define it a little bit more? And then talk about like some of the cases that you've handled here in the office.
Sure. That is a great question because it's one of, I think, people assume that it's what you see in the movies. They think that it's people in shackles being brought in from other countries. And what I tell people all the time is it's not that. It's just, certainly it can be, but what we see on a regular basis is human trafficking and really sex trafficking in all of our neighborhoods. It affects every different type of income level, every race, every geographic area in our county we see human trafficking in. And Maryland, actually, up until last year, was one of 3 states that did not have a labor trafficking law. So a lot of our focus was on the sex trafficking side. And then as of October of this year, Maryland now has, on the state side, criminalized labor trafficking, which I know Ms. Braveboy is very happy about, and that the office definitely assisted in the efforts to criminalize that. The cases that we see, they sort of fall into a few different categories. Some occur out of hotels, and we see it down at the MGM. We see it in hotels just sort of throughout the county. Other cases occur in massage parlors, the illicit massage parlors, which a lot of times are going on 30, 40 in the county at a time. And I think the police department and our office has done a good job of trying to work with our different agencies throughout the county to crack down on it. But it is very difficult because they're continuing. Once they're closed, a week later, they'll reopen. We also have investigations into brothels that operate in the county. And then we see some cases just from a really good patrol officer who maybe saw a sign of human trafficking and then refers it for a longer term investigation.
Awesome. Yeah, and those cases are quite interesting because sometimes we don't have victims who are cooperative, correct? So tell me about like how you, deal with that very real issue often. Either they don't see themselves as victims or they are so attached to their trafficker that it's really difficult to break them out of that cycle. So
Yeah,
how do you deal with that?
I think the best way to deal with it is to form partnerships with the right organizations. And we have really good relationships with some of the victim advocates, such as Courtney's House, the University of Maryland Safe Center, Fair Girls. We work with them regularly. I know the police department has, in more recent years, done a very good job of immediately contacting an advocacy group when they come in contact with a victim out in our community. And I think that the best way to prosecute these cases is to utilize the people who are experts at working with victims, and to realize that they are trained to do that, they have the resources to do that, and to sort of have that relationship. And I serve as the law enforcement co-chair of the Maryland Human Trafficking Task Force on the county and the state level. And so that also helps to build relationships with our advocacy groups, as well as our local and federal law enforcement partners.
What do you think that not just our office, but government and community can do more or better to serve this population of individuals who find themselves in these really tough situations where they are being trafficked? Again, some are very, very young, and so we know that they can't, first of all, cannot consent. And often they don't really know what's happening, right? So you have that group, and then you have some who are a little older, who may have been in this business, unfortunately, for a while, who may not see another way. Like, what do you think we can do to be more supportive of for all of the victims?
So I am really, really grateful that our office has sort of allowed me and supported me a little bit of flexibility in trying to create some innovative ways. So for example, there's been a lot of support to create a multidisciplinary team through the Child Advocacy Center that's going to specifically handle cases involving victims of sex trafficking. And I know, Ms. Braveboy, that you signed off on some support for the University of Maryland Safe Center, who received a grant to work that program, and we're in the process of doing that. So I think being as innovative as possible is really how we're going to combat this. It's important. I don't know, I think I've learned a lot from working with different agencies and seeing what's the best practices, and then trying to implement that in our office. As far as the adult cases, our office through the district court, I don't specifically handle it, but I know you have worked really closely, and Miss Judy Danzo from our office has worked closely to create a prostitution diversion program, a human trafficking diversion program, which diverts the charges for adults who have been charged with what is still called prostitution under the state laws. And so that provides resources and an opportunity for individuals to hopefully get the tools in place so that we will never have to have them back in our system again. And so I think we've been very progressive as an office in trying to address those issues or any gaps we might have in services.
Absolutely. Well, we really have, and we try to serve all of our populations. We have different ethnicities in our county. Folks speak different languages, and so we try to make sure that we have the partners who can assist them. And then we also have individuals who may be transgendered, and so serving them, takes special care as well, because everyone wants to feel heard and listened to. And sometimes if you are considered different in our society, sometimes you don't feel comfortable with maybe the traditional interventions or the traditional groups that intervene. And so we do, in large part, try to reach out to different types of groups so that we are an inclusive office. And it's just great to have someone like you really at the helm doing that great work for our office, someone who is innovative, willing to try something new and learn something new. And none of us knows everything, right? And so it's great to have someone who's competent, obviously, like you are, but also interested in being a student of this and really wanting to be an expert and wanting to give excellence, and serve our community with excellence. So it's just great, just so excellent having you as part of our
Thank you.
team. And so I want to thank you. So do you have any final words to kind of say, maybe to an aspiring law student or someone who's interested in the legal profession? Like, what about this profession for you has you waking up in the middle of the night and working on cases? And because I know that you work really hard, and your unit is a fast-paced unit. So like, what motivates you, and what words of encouragement or advice would you give to someone who's considering?
I think what motivates me is really the victims. Like you said, our unit, we handle a lot of these cases, and they can be really emotionally tough, but that also means that they're the most, and I'm biased, of course, but it also means that they're the most emotionally rewarding cases. I think when you see a parent who has a child that's been victimized by someone and they're putting their trust in you, you feel this enormous amount of responsibility to do the best possible job that you can to not only, help that parent through that difficult time and protect that child, but also to ensure that justice is being achieved in whatever form to, prevent that defendant from doing the same thing again, to punish them for their conduct, but trying to find the most just result. And so what I would say to people is just find something that motivates you. When I was younger, I didn't think I wanted to be a lawyer. When I started law school, I didn't think I wanted to be a prosecutor, but to be open-minded and sort of figure out what's important to you, and you'll figure it out. And I would just encourage everyone as a community to have your ears and eyes open to signs of human trafficking, of labor and sex trafficking. And if you see something, to say something. The National Human Trafficking Hotline, that the number is 1-888-373-7888, and they're always available for calls.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Niki. We've got a lot of insight from you today. And again, thank you so much for the great work that you do for the residents of Prince George's County.
Thank you very much for having me and for all your support.